They laughed at me. My whole family, my parents, my cousins, my own sister. They said I'd never make it, that I was just wasting time, chasing something I could never reach. They called me a failure. But years later, during a military family day, when my sister's unit stood in formation and her commander turned to salute me, calling me, "Ma'am, you're the general?" Their jaws dropped. Like this story already? Drop a comment and don't forget to hit like. Don't subscribe to the channel. But if you love wild revenge stories, we've got more coming. My name is Ashley. I'm 44 now, but this story started when I was just 17. For 27 years, I walked a path no one believed I could walk. But every step was worth it. Every insult, every door slammed in my face, every tear I cried alone. This is how it all began. I grew up in a small neighborhood called Bramble Hollow, a place where dreams were small and gossip was big. My family wasn't poor, but they weren't the supportive type either. My parents, Leonard and Donna, were the kind who loved bragging rights. They didn't care much about what made you happy. They cared about what made them look good in front of the neighbors. I was the quiet one. The strange daughter who didn't care about prom or cheerleading or getting the attention of the football team. I was the girl who stayed up reading history books, learning about wars and strategies, sketching battle plans for fun. While my younger sister, Brittany, got praised for her curls and cute dimples, I got told, "Why can't you be more like her?" When I told my family I wanted to join the military, they laughed so hard my dad had to wipe tears from his eyes. You'd faint before boot camp's over. Be serious, Ashley. You're not made for that. My mom shook her head, like I said I wanted to join the circus. You're too soft, Brittany added, smirking. She was 15 at the time, already acting like she ruled the world. You wouldn't last a day. That night, I packed a small duffel bag and wrote a note. I was 17 and stubborn, and I'd had enough of being told who I was and wasn't. I left home before sunrise. I stayed with an old classmate in the next town for 2 months, working at a gas station while studying for the ASVAB exam. I passed. The recruiter told me my scores were high enough to land any field I wanted. My heart beat fast, but I kept cool. I chose officer training. I wasn't just going to serve, I was going to lead. My parents didn't come to my commissioning ceremony. They didn't even call. The only message I got was from Brittany. Hope this little phase is fun. You'll come crawling back. I didn't. The early years were the hardest. I won't lie, I cried. I bled. I pushed through broken bones and sleepless nights. But something inside me refused to quit. Every insult my family had ever thrown at me played in my mind like fuel. You're weak. You're not good enough. You'll fail. And every time I heard those words in my head, I pushed harder. I rose through the ranks slowly, with sweat and grit. I wasn't the loudest, but I was the sharpest. Strategy was my strength, and I used it well. I earned my team's respect. I led missions. I faced real danger, and I stood tall. 10 years passed, then 15. While I was overseas, I got word Brittany had joined the military too. I blinked when I read the letter. My sister? The same one who laughed at me? The same one who told me I'd never make it? She had joined the Air Force through a ROTC program, and from what I gathered, she was stationed stateside. She didn't know where I was or what rank I'd earned. I kept it that way. I wanted her to believe I'd disappeared, but I hadn't. I had made it to lieutenant colonel, then colonel. By my 42nd birthday, I was one of the few women in my division being considered for brigadier general. And just a year later, I got that star. I still hadn't seen my family. In 25 years, I hadn't spent more than 5 minutes on the phone with my mother or father. Brittany? Not even that. I had no idea how she was doing in her career, but I knew one thing, she didn't know about mine. Then came the invitation. It was a printed card that arrived through an official channel. Family and Friends Military Recognition Day, Fort Callahan Base. The base Brittany was stationed at. She had made it to captain, according to the card. She sent it to me, not because she wanted to reconnect, but because she wanted to show off. Thought you might want to see what real success looks like, the note inside read in her familiar handwriting. Come see how a real military career is done. I almost laughed. I stared at the card for 5 whole minutes. Then I smiled, the kind of smile that starts slow, then spreads with satisfaction. I RSVP'd immediately. The day arrived with clear skies and a cool breeze. I didn't show up in a limousine or with bodyguards. I came in a plain, government-issued vehicle, wearing my full dress uniform. Stars gleamed on my shoulder. My ribbons and bars spoke volumes. But most important was the air around me, the kind of quiet authority that follows someone who's led men and women into fire and brought them back. I checked in at the gate. The young man at the security checkpoint stood up straight when he read my name and rank. He stammered out a salute and waved me through so fast you'd think I was the president. The event was already in motion when I arrived. Families were gathered, taking pictures. Officers were giving speeches. Brittany was standing near her unit, beaming, laughing, shaking hands. She didn't see me at first, but her commander did. A tall man in a dark blue uniform turned his head, froze for a second, then quickly stepped toward me. His eyes scanned my rank. Then he stood straight as a board, threw a sharp salute, and said, "Ma'am, you're the general?" His voice carried, loud enough that Brittany turned her head, loud enough that people stopped and looked. I returned the salute. "At ease, Colonel." And that's when it happened. Brittany's eyes met mine. Her jaw dropped. Her laughter vanished. She blinked like she didn't recognize me at first. Then her eyes scanned my shoulders. Her face turned pale. But that wasn't the most shocking part. The commander turned back to her and said with a raised brow, "Captain, you didn't tell me your sister was a general." And right then, everyone turned toward her. Her teammates, her friends, even a few senior officers nearby. Brittany looked like she wanted to sink into the floor. I smiled and walked forward, calm and steady. That was the moment everything shifted. But just before I could speak, something unexpected happened. A sharp voice crackled through a radio nearby. Then, loudspeakers rang out. "All personnel report to shelter immediately. This is not a drill." People began to scatter. Panic set in. Something was wrong on the base. I turned to the commander. He looked at me with serious eyes and said, "We have an intruder alert, ma'am." And just like that, the ceremony was over. The real situation was just beginning. The air shifted. Families scrambled. Soldiers ran to their posts. And the calm of the recognition event turned into a storm of controlled chaos. Sirens wailed across Fort Callahan as security teams rushed into formation. But I didn't move with the crowd. I stood still, calculating. The base was under threat, and now wasn't the time for personal drama. But I noticed one thing in that moment that gave me a strange satisfaction. Brittany wasn't running toward the shelter. She was still frozen, her eyes locked on me as if the world around her had completely disappeared. The same girl who once called me soft was now standing paralyzed, while the sister she mocked moved into action. "Colonel," I said sharply to her commander, "I need to be briefed immediately." "Yes, ma'am," he replied without hesitation, falling in step beside me. "Unknown vehicle breached, outer checkpoint. Surveillance, lost contact. Possible test drill, but it's not scheduled. We're verifying now." We rushed through the base's secure wing. As I walked, soldiers stood to the side and saluted. I could feel their surprise, the way their eyes flicked between my insignia and my calm expression. It wasn't every day a general showed up, especially not unannounced, during a base emergency. We entered a command room buzzing with voices and alerts. Maps lit up the screens. The colonel handed me a headset, and I was immediately patched into the situation room. I took command like I had done 100 times before. "Lock down all east and west access gates," I ordered. "Reroute patrols to the southern perimeter. and I want aerial drone footage up in 60 seconds. Yes, ma'am. Behind me, Brittany walked in a little too slowly, clearly not used to this kind of pressure. She didn't say a word, but her face was still pale. Her commander motioned her to sit. For the next 15 minutes, I coordinated with the base's security teams. Turned out it was a false alarm, a civilian vehicle with a faulty tag that triggered the system. It was quickly cleared up, but the moment had done something important. The ceremony had ended, but not the effect of my arrival. The room gradually settled down, and Brittany's commander finally had a chance to breathe. He looked at me, still stunned. "Permission to speak freely, ma'am?" I gave a small nod. "I've served this base for 12 years and never once had a star walk in, let alone during a family day." I smiled slightly. "Life's full of surprises, Colonel." Then I turned to Brittany. She looked like she hadn't blinked in a while. "How long have you been stationed here?" I asked casual, like we weren't surrounded by a room full of officers, watching this family reunion unfold. She swallowed. 3 years. Doing well. I asked. Yeah, she mumbled. I made captain last year." "Good for you," I said calmly. "I remember someone once said I wouldn't last a day." She shifted uncomfortably. Someone in the back chuckled quietly, trying to hide it. After the debrief, I stepped outside with the commander. The event had mostly dispersed. Families were heading out, but the buzz around the base was electric. Word travels fast in the military, and everyone now knew that the mystery general at the event was Brittany's sister. The same Brittany who'd spent 3 years on base acting like she was the shining star of her family. He chuckled. "Captain Brittany's been confident, let's say." I smirked. That checks out. I didn't plan to humiliate her. Not intentionally, but it was already happening. And the truth? A small part of me had waited for this, for her to feel a tiny fraction of what I felt all those years ago. After the event, I got back into my vehicle, ready to head to my quarters. But just as I shut the door, I saw her standing there alone. No friends around her anymore. Just Brittany, holding her hat in her hands like a nervous child. I rolled the window down. She cleared her throat. "Why didn't you ever tell us?" she asked, voice small. "Tell you what?" I said, "That you made it, that you outranked everyone." I stared at her. "Would you have cared?" She didn't answer. "I wanted to make it for myself, not to prove you wrong. But seeing your face today, that was a bonus." She looked away. "You think you're better than me?" she snapped suddenly. It was the first real burst of emotion she'd shown. I raised an eyebrow. "You really asking that right now?" She blinked, realizing how petty it sounded. "I worked hard," she mumbled. "I earned my rank." "I know," I said, "and I'm proud of you. But pride doesn't erase how you treated me. You don't get to bully someone and then act confused when they don't invite you to the celebration." "I was young." "So was I replied. "But I didn't use that as an excuse to tear someone down." She didn't respond, just stood there, lips pressed tight. "Don't worry," I said, shifting the car into drive. "I won't embarrass you. I came because I needed closure, not revenge." Then I drove off, but it didn't end there. 2 days later, a high-level military conference was announced in the region. Officers from surrounding bases were invited. And yes, so was Fort Callahan. Each base had to send their top 3 officers to present their leadership philosophy. Guess who was selected from Fort Callahan? Captain Brittany. And guess who was heading the panel? Me. When she found out, I heard she locked herself in her room for 4 hours. But she still showed up. She sat across from me, in front of an entire panel of decorated officers. And now she had to speak about leadership, about integrity, about humility. I didn't interrupt. I didn't have to. She stumbled halfway through, lost her train of thought, fumbled her notes, and then it happened. She stopped, looked up, eyes wide, like she had just remembered something. "My sister once told me," she began, voice shaking, that real leaders don't chase praise. They earn it, quietly, and they never stop fighting, even when no one believes in them. She looked straight at me. I didn't understand that back then, but I do now. Silence filled the room. Then a slow clap started from the back of the room. It was General Stewart, my mentor, a man known for not clapping for anyone. Soon the rest followed, even me, and just as Brittany's shoulders lowered like she could finally breathe again, the base phones rang. 3 times. An aide rushed in, pale as a sheet. "General Ashley, urgent call from Pentagon. They're patching you in now." The entire room froze. Something big was happening, and I was about to find out what. I stood and calmly followed the aide down a side hallway as dozens of eyes trailed me. The conference was instantly forgotten. Every officer in that room knew a direct Pentagon call mid-conference wasn't routine. It was serious. We reached a secure room, and the aide handed me the line. "They're on," he whispered before closing the door behind me. "General Ashley speaking," I said. The voice on the other end was familiar. It belonged to General Halvorsen, one of the Joint Chiefs, not someone who made small talk. "Ma'am," he said with a tone clipped and sharp, "we have a situation developing near the northern border. Unmanned systems have gone dark. Satellite imagery suggests deliberate sabotage." I straightened. "Confirmed breach." "Not yet, but we need someone who's operated off-grid systems in hostile terrain. You're top of that list." I didn't hesitate. "I'll head out in 2 hours." "One more thing," he added. "The operation needs someone with local terrain knowledge. We've been tracking all Fort Callahan personnel in that region. Captain Brittany Morris was born nearby. If she's capable, we'll need her too." I paused, not because I doubted Brittany's capability. She had the training, but emotionally, after everything, this would stretch both of us. Still, my answer was firm. "I'll take her." "Good. Your lead. We'll have transport ready at 0600. Full authorization incoming." "Good luck, General." The call ended. I stared at the quiet phone for a few seconds, gathering my thoughts. This wasn't just about proving myself anymore. This was about protecting the country, and doing it with a sister who spent years believing I was a failure. I walked back into the main hall. The conference had wrapped up, but Brittany was still standing by the corner, quietly talking with her commander. She noticed me right away. I motioned her over. "We need to talk," I said simply. We walked outside, away from others. "There's a situation developing," I said. "I'm taking a lead team to assess and secure our perimeter. You're on that team." She blinked. "Wait, what?" "You're taking me. You grew up near the affected sector. That matters. You're qualified, and we don't have time to argue." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Okay." I saw something shift in her eyes. Not pride, not fear, something closer to respect. Quiet, tentative, but there. Early next morning, we boarded a Black Hawk headed north. With us were 5 hand-picked officers from different units. It wasn't a long ride, but no one spoke much. Just the quiet hum of the chopper blades and the wind rushing past. We touched down near a forest clearing, several miles from the last known signal. Drones had gone dark. Communications were scrambled. Whatever we were walking into, it wasn't accidental. As we advanced, I gave commands, secured the flanks, coordinated with backup through a shortwave encrypted line. Brittany stayed close, alert, focused. We moved in formation through the dense woods for 3 hours. That's when things went wrong. One of our forward scouts, Lieutenant Harris, signaled us to stop. He'd noticed something, a glint of metal partially buried beneath leaves. I crouched beside it. It was the shell of a surveillance pod, cracked open like someone had gutted it. "We've got tampering," I said. Brittany moved forward to help me lift it, and then the explosion hit. A sudden burst of pressure tossed us backward. Dirt, leaves, and fire lifted from the forest floor as a hidden mine detonated just yards from our location. I hit the ground hard, my ears ringing. For a few seconds, I couldn't hear anything, just a dull thump in my chest. When my vision cleared, I saw smoke rising. "Brittany!" I shouted, crawling toward where I last saw her. She was down, conscious, but bleeding from a gash on her forehead. "I'm good," she coughed. "Where's Harris?" I scanned quickly. He was 5 feet away, motionless. I grabbed my comm, trying to signal base, but static filled the channel. "We're cut off," I said. Brittany stood, still dazed but pushing through. "What do we do?" I looked at her, this girl who once mocked my survival skills. Now we show them what failure looks like when it fights back. We carried Harris between us, moving deeper into the woods to avoid possible secondary traps. Our mission had now shifted: get out alive, regroup, and report the sabotage. After 2 grueling miles, we found a dry rock ledge and set up temporary shelter. Brittany used her field kit to clean Harris's wounds, while I rerouted power to a backup beacon. She glanced at me once, eyes tired. "Why did you really agree to take me on this mission?" I kept my voice even. "Because you deserved a chance to do something bigger than yourself. And maybe because I wanted you to see what I actually became." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You always fought harder than all of us. We just never stopped to see it." The beacon finally blinked green. We were reconnected. Backup would arrive by morning. But just as we settled in for the night, we heard it. A single, sharp whistle cutting through the darkness. It wasn't one of ours. I grabbed my rifle, my voice low and cold. "We're not alone out here." And just like that, the real fight was about to begin. The forest fell deathly quiet. That whistle, short, sharp, and deliberate, echoed like a warning through the trees. I could see Brittany freeze, her hand instinctively going to her weapon. Even in the dim moonlight filtering through the canopy, I could see the color drain from her face. "We need to move," I whispered. "But Harris—" "I'll carry him," I said, already crouching to lift him onto my back. "You take point. Stay low, watch for tripwires, and don't make a sound." To her credit, Brittany didn't argue. She gave one short nod and crept ahead, rifle up, every step placed carefully between the leaves and brush. I followed with Harris over my shoulders, his breathing shallow but steady. We moved slowly, the forest thick with shadows. Every snapping twig made our hearts pound. We didn't speak. We didn't even breathe too loud. Whoever was out there had the advantage. I didn't know how many there were. I didn't know what they wanted. But I knew one thing: they'd planted that mine. And they were still here. About 15 minutes into our quiet escape, Brittany suddenly raised a closed fist, military hand signal for halt. I stopped in my tracks. She turned slightly, motioned 2 fingers toward a thick set of bushes about 20 yards ahead. Then she pointed to her ear. I strained to listen. Footsteps. Multiple. Slow, careful steps. I lowered Harris onto the ground and crouched behind a large tree trunk. Brittany moved silently into position on the other side, her eyes locked on the brush. Then a figure emerged. Tall, heavy boots, tactical vest, face covered with a black scarf. Not military, not ours, and definitely not friendly. He was armed. Then another followed, and another. 3 men in total, scanning the area with night vision goggles and silenced rifles. This wasn't some random gang. These were trained mercenaries, and we were right in their hunting ground. I locked eyes with Brittany and signaled. Ambush. Flank left. Asterisk, asterisk. She gave a tight nod, crawling low through the undergrowth, circling around. I waited and waited. Then, when one of them stepped just 5 feet in front of me, I struck. I lunged forward and grabbed his weapon, twisting hard until it snapped from his hands. He fought back, throwing a punch to my ribs, but I ducked and slammed my elbow into his jaw. He dropped. 1 down. The other 2 spun toward the noise, but before they could react, Brittany appeared behind them. She fired once, straight into the dirt near their feet. "Drop it!" she shouted. They hesitated, just long enough for me to pull my sidearm and aim. Now, I barked. Both rifles clattered to the ground. We tied them with combat cords we had in our packs, securing their hands and feet. One of them tried to talk. You don't know what you're involved in. Quiet, I snapped. Who sent you? He just smiled. I motioned Brittany to stay with them while I radioed command. This time the signal held. Command, this is Ghost Hawk 1. We've encountered hostile personnel. Repeat, hostile mercenaries in Quadrant 6, Sector 2. 1 injured, 2 in custody. Request immediate air extraction and interrogation support. Copy that, General. ETA 20 minutes. Hold your position. Brittany sat beside me, breathing heavily. Did you see their gear? They weren't some off-grid scavengers. That was organized. I nodded grimly. Someone paid them, and judging by how they found us so fast, we were never supposed to leave this forest. She swallowed. If I hadn't signaled that noise. You saved us, I said, looking her in the eye. You stayed calm. You thought like a soldier. She didn't say anything, but I could see it in her face. Something inside her cracked open. The need for approval, for validation. She wasn't fighting me anymore. She was fighting beside me. Minutes later, helicopters roared overhead. The extraction team dropped fast ropes and secured the prisoners, then lifted Harris onto a stretcher and pulled us all out. Back at the base, Brittany and I were debriefed. I kept my report honest. She'd been sharp, alert, and decisive. Everything you'd want in a field officer. A few hours later, I was summoned to the conference room for a follow-up intelligence briefing. As I stepped inside, I was surprised to see Brittany already seated beside the Joint Intelligence Division. She stood up when I entered. One of the analysts turned toward me. General Ashley, the men you encountered in the forest have ties to a known private paramilitary contractor. We believe they were paid to interfere with surveillance systems, but we don't know who hired them yet. I folded my arms. Keep pressing. Someone went to a lot of trouble to disrupt our systems and frame it like a technical glitch. Then the analyst added, there's more. Your sister, Captain Brittany, has been requested by name to join our Special Regional Intelligence Task Force. I turned to her, surprised. She was blinking fast. Requested? By who? By you, ma'am, the analyst said. We assumed this was part of your succession recommendation. I shook my head. I didn't file any recommendation. Everyone went quiet. Brittany slowly turned toward me. Then who? Just then, a military aide burst into the room, out of breath. Ma'am, we just got new intel. The prisoners we brought in, one of them talked. I frowned. Talked? About what? The aide's voice was nervous. He says there's a bigger plan, that the forest was only phase 1. I took a step forward. Phase 1 of what? The aide swallowed hard. He said the real operation starts at Fort Callahan in less than 24 hours. The room froze. Everyone looked to me. Sound the alarm, I ordered. Full lockdown. No one gets in or out. We've got a base to protect. And this time, I wasn't just walking back into Fort Callahan as the sister nobody respected. I was walking in as the general, about to stop a full-scale attack. The tension at Fort Callahan was thick enough to cut with a knife. The base buzzed with activity, alarms ringing through the corridors and soldiers rushing to their posts. I stood at the command center, Brittany beside me, both of us trying to make sense of what the prisoners had revealed. The mercenary who talked was clearly scared. His words were clipped and cautious, but he had said enough to make it clear. This was no random attack. It was a coordinated strike planned to cripple Fort Callahan's defenses, timed for the moment when the base was most vulnerable. The question was why and who was behind it. The commanders called for an emergency briefing. Officers filled the room, faces grim, eyes flickering between me and the intelligence reports. General Ashley, one of them, said, We've intercepted chatter indicating an insider may be aiding the attackers. Someone with access to critical systems. I took a deep breath. We can't afford to waste time. Everyone with access must be accounted for immediately. Lock down all communication channels. No one leaves or enters without clearance. Brittany leaned over, voice low. This is bigger than we thought. It's personal. I nodded, remembering the years my family had dismissed me, the way they had treated me like a failure. And now here I was, in the middle of a real battle to protect the country and the base where my sister served. The hours dragged on as we pieced together the enemy's plan. Reports came in of suspicious activity around the perimeter, unauthorized access attempts, and encrypted messages to unknown locations. Then, late that night, a chilling alert came through. An explosion rocked the east wing of the base. The floor shook beneath us. The alarm systems blared louder. We rushed to the scene. Smoke billowed from a supply storage area, and soldiers were evacuating injured personnel. I took command immediately, organizing teams to secure the area and treat the wounded. Brittany was by my side, her hands steady despite the chaos. As we moved through the smoke and dust, a grim realization settled over me. This was just the beginning. Someone inside Fort Callahan was working against us, and it was only a matter of time before they made their next move. The explosion had shattered the calm of the night, but it was only the first blow in a war we hadn't seen coming. Smoke still curled in thick tendrils above the east wing as emergency crews rushed in, but I couldn't focus on the damage, not yet. My mind was racing, piecing together the betrayal that had unfolded right under our noses. Inside the command center, the atmosphere was tense. Brittany and I stood together as intel streamed in, security breaches, communications cut, and shadowy movements within Fort Callahan's perimeter. Whoever the traitor was, they knew exactly how to cripple us from the inside. I felt their eyes on me, officers who had doubted my capabilities, family members who had once whispered I'd never succeed. Now their skepticism was drowned out by the weight of what I had to do. Protect everyone here, even if it meant fighting those closest to me. Brittany's voice broke through my thoughts. General, the security logs show unauthorized access to the armory. Someone's arming themselves. I nodded grimly. Lock down the armory. Initiate a base-wide sweep. Minutes later, a message flashed across the screen. An unidentified figure was moving toward the command center. Get ready, I told Brittany, my heart pounding. The doors burst open, and a shadowy figure charged in, armed and desperate. Before I could react, Brittany tackled the intruder, wrestling the weapon away. It was him, the insider. The man's face twisted with rage and desperation as I stepped forward. Why? I asked, steady despite the chaos. Why betray your own people? His voice was bitter. You don't understand. You've always been the golden child. Everyone looked down on me. The words hit hard, but I held my ground. This isn't about grudges. It's about protecting lives. Sirens wailed and reinforcements flooded the room. The traitor was handcuffed and taken away. Exhausted but determined, I turned to Brittany. This is far from over, but now we're ready. She met my gaze, a fierce pride shining in her eyes. I'm with you, General. For the first time in 27 years, I knew I had proven them wrong, not with words, but with actions. And this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where kindness and strength could overcome even the deepest betrayals.